We may minimize our traumatic experiences, right? We do. When we were young, our parents minimized our traumatic experiences, and so we've grown up and we minimize our own traumatic experiences, and so then when we have our own children, we minimize their traumatic experiences, right? This is planet trauma, and it hurts. It hurts. Our interactions with other people hurt, right? It doesn't always feel good, and there are injuries, and some of them are very deep, but we're not honoring that, and we're not listening to how our body's trying to tell us that we've been injured, and that we need to pay attention, and that we need to hear it and hold it, with loving attention, and let it move through us. Many of us are just too scared to do it, and until we do, we are not going to have our own healthy capacity to self-regulate our emotions and our experiences. So we're learning about what can go wrong, and what can go wrong is too much stress that we aren't careful about balancing out in our life so that it does modulate, and certainly traumatic experiences that we don't acknowledge and honor and get help for, really, and balance out in our life. So that's what can go wrong with it, and then we can be deregulated, if you want to call it that, and little things can really set us off in a big way, right? When we're not in the zone, when we're outside the zone in an over-aroused way, then, little things can really set us off. And then we have this other problem, and I know you know what I'm talking about, this numbing, this shut down place that so many people are in, right? The glazed look in people's eyes, the dissociation, the disconnect, the walking zombies, right? There are so many of us now. And that's sort of like being out of the zone in an under-aroused way, right? Where we've given up. We've just gotten hopeless. We don't think that what we do makes a difference. We're in that place of I can't. What's the point? I tried, it didn't work out, I'm tired of trying. And this is what we're seeing in the schools. I train teachers all over North America, and they're telling me now that 50% of their classrooms are full of these students that they're calling disengaged. So they're just not even part of they're just not part of life. They're not alive. They don't care about their education. They don't care about their relationships with their elders. They don't have a relationship with themselves. There's really a huge disconnect going on, and it starts really early on. So that's alarming to me, that the educators that I speak to in every part of the country, in Canada, are describing that up to 50% of their classrooms are filled with these disengaged students. So what does it mean to be engaged? I talk to them, what it means to be engaged. Well, to be engaged is to have joy and vigor. Joy and vigor. When you're engaged, you're in the optimum zone of arousal. You're not way up here bouncing off the walls, right? Which many of our students are nowadays. And you're not down here in the I can't, what's the point, I don't care, I'm bored, what difference is it gonna make anyway, right? That's the under-aroused place. If you're engaged, then you're in that zone of optimum arousal where you have joy and vigor. You're interested, you're curious, you're exploring. The world is exciting, and the people in it are interesting, and right, there's this vigor. And we see it in so many of our babies before we send them off to school. It's really, something happens, something changes, and the parents that come up to me that are in the audiences that I speak to, just my last audience in Texas last week said, this woman came up who's an educator, but she came up as a parent because she said, my goodness, you're making me think about my daughter who was so alive. And now she comes back from school at the end of the day and she is a mess. She is angry, she's raging at me, she's exhausted, she's emotional, she's all over the map. Now she holds it together for school, does what she needs to, for the nice lady who's telling her she needs to know her, this is in kindergarten we're talking about right now. And she holds it together, and then she gets home and she falls apart. And the mother said to me, you know, I'm just feeling, because what I talk to everybody about in my talks is trust your gut instinct. What is your gut instinct? Why is it called a gut instinct, first of all? It's called a gut instinct because you feel it in your gut. It's sensory. It is a gift from your animal brain. What is your animal brain geared for? Survival. It's all about preserving you, the wellness of you. So when you get a gut instinct and you feel that sensory experience that's coming from your animal brain, because that's the language it speaks, and you get that sick feeling in your stomach and your knees start to wobble and your animal brain is saying, this isn't good for your wellness. This isn't about your survival. This could threaten your survival. When you get that gut instinct, listen to it. It is a gift. Do not let your neocortex, who likes to think of itself as, you know, the end all be all, well, it can talk us out of our gut instinct. It can talk us out of it. It can say, don't be ridiculous, right? That's what the neocortex, it's all about, ego and control, and it wants to shame us sometimes out of this fear, this very healthy fear that the animal brain gives us to say, this isn't good. So this mother came up to me and said, my gut instinct is telling me to get her the heck out of that school. And I looked at her and I said, get her the heck out of that school. Get her out. She's not ready. You know, it doesn't matter that academically she's piecing it together and making it work. What matters is that she's falling apart. She's not alive anymore. She's so angry and frustrated and scared and confused about trying to do something that she really isn't ready to do with joy and vigor. You see, that's the difference. We want our babies to keep their joy and vigor. And so we have to protect it. It's really important that we protect it. And we do that by making sure that they're not being thrown into something that their brain isn't ready for yet. So the way the educational system is going now, where they're giving writing tests to our babies before they enter kindergarten, right? And then send them home with homework packets in kindergarten. This is all wrong. It's all wrong. It's robbing them of their joy and their vigor. They get home, and instead of really being able to play, by second and third grade, they're doing an hour or two of homework. Well, who has an hour or two at the end of a school day? Right? There's dinner and there's bath time and there's story time and there's all this. Where do you squeeze in? It's not making any sense at all. So once the neuroscience is much more mainstream, which is what I'm hoping is our focus here today, it's just another reason why we're doing what we're doing, is to make this work accessible, make this information accessible to everyone so that it becomes more and more mainstream, so that moms and dads know, because if we're the ones voting about what we want to fund, then we need to fund educational practices that make sense, that are actually based on the brain, how it develops, how it works most optimally, how our children are going to develop with this joy and vigor intact. That's how we're going to keep them engaged, right? Because we don't want to start talking about high school dropout rates. I mean, what's going on is atrocious. And if we don't change the educational system, right, our teachers may as well start giving in their notices and signing up to build more prisons, because that's where we're going. That's what's happening. Try not to get too impassioned about it, but it really, we've got to start connecting these dots. It is so baffling to me that we're not connecting the dots between this very early brain development, how school is ignoring it, right? How our systems are really ignoring it. And, well, I guess that's not fair to say, is it? You know, ignorance is ignorance. So we've got to make it mainstream, so we no longer have that excuse that we're ignorant about it. We need to know that this is what the neuroscience says is possible, and then we need to be creating our policy and our systems in response to the neuroscience and how the brain develops, and then we've got a system that works. So until then, it's not working. And that's why we've got charter schools, and we've got alternative schools, and we've got, Andre Agassi creating his own school, and Bill Gates saying, he's going to do it a different way, because the way that it's working generally now doesn't work.